Chelsea are chasing two players this summer, but can they actually get them? A deep look at the Jacobo Navarros and Joao Gomez transfer situations. Let me ask you something. What is the point of having money if you still cannot get the players you want? That is the question a lot of Chelsea fans are asking right now. Because summer is coming, the transfer window is getting closer, and Chelsea have already identified players they want to sign. The names are out there. The clubs know about the interest. And yet, both deals are complicated in their own way. We are talking about Jacobo Navarros, the young Spanish center-back at Como, and Joao Gomez, the Brazilian central midfielder at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Two very different players, two very different situations, but both sitting right at the top of Chelsea's wish list heading into the summer. In this piece, we are going to break down both situations one by one. Who are these players? Why does Chelsea want them? What problems stand in the way? And honestly, what are the chances of either deal getting done? Let us get into it. First, let us talk about Jacobo Navarros. If you have not heard of Jacobo Navarros yet, do not feel bad. He is not a name that most football fans outside of Serie A are very familiar with, but Chelsea have been watching him, and once you look at his profile, it is not hard to understand why. Navarros is 21 years old and he plays center-back for Como in Italy. Yes, Como, the club that only recently came back to Serie A after a long time away, the same Como that has been making noise in the transfer market by bringing in some interesting young talents. And Navarros is one of those players who has caught attention for the right reasons. He is valued at around 25 million euros right now. Reports say he has a contract with Como that runs until 2030, which is actually quite a long deal for a player his age. That long contract tells you that Como believe in him and that they are not in any rush to sell. They have tied him down because they know his value is only going to go up. So why is Chelsea interested? Well, think about it from Chelsea's point of view. They have been trying to build a young squad. They have been investing in players with long-term potential. A 21-year-old center-back who is already playing in Serie A and attracting interest from Premier League clubs is exactly the kind of profile they look for. Chelsea's defense has needed reinforcing for a while. Yes, they have spent heavily in other positions, but at the back, particularly in the center-back position, there is still work to do. Bringing in a player like Navarros at 21 gives them someone they can develop, someone who can grow into a key player over the next several years. And 25 million euros in today's transfer market is actually not that much for a young center-back with this kind of upside. We have seen clubs pay double and triple that for players who have not even proven themselves as much as Navarros already has. But here is where it gets complicated. Now here is the part that makes this deal tricky, and honestly, it is the kind of thing that can turn a straightforward transfer into a real headache. Jacobo Navarros is not just a Como player in the simple sense. He came through Real Madrid's system, and when Real Madrid let him go to Como, they did not just wave goodbye and wish him well. They included two important clauses in the deal. The first is a buyback clause. That means Real Madrid have the right to buy him back at some point. The exact details of when they can trigger it and at what price are not fully known publicly, but the fact that it exists is very significant. It means any club that signs Navarros knows that Real Madrid could potentially come in and take him back. The second clause is a 50% sell-on fee. This one is a big deal financially. It means that if Como sell Navarros to Chelsea for, say, 25 million euros, Real Madrid would be entitled to half of any profit above whatever they originally sold him for. So if the sell-on kicks in, Real Madrid could end up getting a significant chunk of money from any future transfer. What does this mean for Chelsea? It means a few things. First, the price to sign Navarros might end up being higher than 25 million euros because Como would want to account for the money they have to pass on to Real Madrid. Second, and maybe more importantly, Real Madrid could technically trigger their buyback clause and take Navarros themselves before Chelsea even get the chance to complete a deal. Now you might be wondering, does Real Madrid actually want Navarros back? Right now, there is no strong indication that they do, but the option is there, and that uncertainty alone makes Chelsea's position a little uncomfortable. Think about it this way. You spend 25 or maybe 30 million euros on a player, you plan your season around him, you integrate him into your squad, and then the next summer, Real Madrid decide they want him back. That would be a very frustrating situation for any club to be in. This is not a reason for Chelsea to walk away completely, but it is a reason for them to go into any negotiations with their eyes wide open. They need to understand exactly what they are getting into with the buyback clause and decide whether the risk is worth it. If Chelsea can negotiate some kind of protection against the buyback, or if they get clarity on when and how Real Madrid can exercise that clause, then the deal becomes much more attractive. Without that clarity, there is always going to be a cloud hanging over the whole thing. So what do you think, Chelsea fans? Is Navarros worth the risk given the Real Madrid clauses? Or should Chelsea look for a center-back option without that kind of complication attached? Now, let us talk about Joao Gomez. If Jacobo Navarros is the complicated one, then Joao Gomez is the urgent one. This is a situation that is moving fast and Chelsea need to keep up. Gomez is 25 years old and plays central midfield for Wolverhampton Wanderers. He is Brazilian, and he has been one of the best players at Wolves over the past couple of seasons. He brings energy, physicality, and a level of quality that has honestly been wasted on a team that has been struggling the way Wolves have. His value is listed at 40 million euros, which makes him significantly more expensive than Navarros. But for a 25-year-old central midfielder at his level, that is actually a pretty fair price in the current market. Central midfielders who can defend, press, and carry the ball are not cheap, and clubs know it. Chelsea have been interested in Gomez for a while now. Reports from around 10 days ago confirmed that Chelsea had asked about him. And sources close to Wolves at the time downplayed the possibility of a transfer, saying it was not likely to happen. But here's the thing about football transfers. The situation can change very quickly, and it has changed. The reason? Wolves are in serious danger of getting relegated from the Premier League. If that happens, and it is looking more and more likely, everything changes. The players who were not necessarily available suddenly become available. The club that was holding firm on a high price suddenly becomes more willing to negotiate. And the player himself, who perhaps wanted to stay and help his team stay up, now wants to leave because playing in the Championship was not part of his plan. Reports say there is now growing confidence among top clubs that a deal for Gomes can be done at a price that makes sense. And crucially, Gomes himself is expected to push hard to leave Molineux if Wolves do go down. The Liverpool problem. Now here's the part that should really get Chelsea fans talking. The most recent news, which came out just a few hours ago according to reports from RTI Esporte, is that Chelsea are behind Liverpool in the race to sign Joao Gomez. Not ahead, not level, behind. That is a significant piece of information. Liverpool have been one of the best run clubs in England over the past decade. When they want a player, they usually get them. They are organized, they move quickly, and they have the resources to compete with anyone. If Liverpool are ahead of Chelsea in the race for Gomes, then Chelsea have a real problem. They are not just competing against Tottenham or Newcastle or some mid-table club. They are competing against one of the most attractive destinations in European football right now. So what can Chelsea do? A few things. First, they can try to move faster. One of the complaints about Chelsea's recent transfer business is that they can sometimes be slow to pull the trigger. They do a lot of research, they have a lot of people involved in decisions, and sometimes that leads to delays. In a race like this, delays kill deals. Second, Chelsea can offer something Liverpool cannot. Maybe that is a higher wage. Maybe it is a bigger signing bonus. Maybe it is just a project that appeals more to Gomes personally. At the end of the day, the player has a big say in where he goes, and Chelsea need to make their pitch as strong as possible. Third, Chelsea can wait and see. If Liverpool end up not completing the deal for whatever reason, Chelsea need to be ready to step in immediately. Being second in the queue is not ideal, but it is not the end of the road either. But honestly, Chelsea fans should be a little worried about this one. When you are behind Liverpool in a transfer race, you are in a difficult spot. Why Gomes makes sense for Chelsea. Before we get too negative, let us remind ourselves why Chelsea are interested in Gomes in the first place. Because this is genuinely a player who could make a big difference for them. Chelsea's midfield has had some issues. They have some very creative and technical players in the middle of the park, but they have sometimes lacked the kind of player who will do the dirty work, who will win the ball back, who will put their body on the line to protect the defense. Gomez is exactly that kind of player. He is aggressive in the press, he reads the game well, and he is not afraid of a physical battle. At the same time, he is technically good enough to play the ball simply and keep things moving. He is not just a destroyer. He can actually play football. At 25, he is at that stage of his career where he is mature enough to handle big club pressure, but still has his best years ahead of him. That profile fits perfectly with what Chelsea claim to be building. The 40 million euro price tag might sound like a lot, but compare it to what Chelsea have spent on other positions and it actually looks quite reasonable. If he comes in and becomes a regular starter and helps Chelsea win more games, that money will look like very good business in 2 or 3 years' time. And remember, multiple clubs are interested. Tottenham wanted him, Newcastle wanted him, Liverpool want him now. When that many good clubs are chasing the same player, it usually means the player is the real deal. The Wolves' relegation factor changes everything. Let us spend a moment on something that is really the engine driving the whole Gomes situation. Wolves are likely going down. Relegation in English football is not just a sporting issue, it is a financial disaster. A club that goes from the Premier League to the Championship loses a huge amount of money. Broadcast deals, commercial partnerships, match day revenue, all of it takes a massive hit. For a club like Wolves, that means they will almost certainly have to sell some players. They cannot afford to keep paying Premier League wages for a Championship squad. The good players who stayed loyal through a difficult season are now going to be encouraged to move on because the club simply cannot keep them financially. Gomez falls right into this category. He is one of their best players. He has been linked with Premier League clubs. If Wolves go down, he will be at the top of the list of players that need to leave to help balance the books. And from Gomez' side, why would he want to stay? He is a player who has ambitions. He wants to play at the highest level. Playing Championship football at 25 when Chelsea and Liverpool are calling is not a good career move. It is almost certain that he will push for a move. So the good news for Chelsea is that this deal is probably going to happen one way or another. Gomes will leave Wolves this summer. The question is just whether he goes to Chelsea or to Liverpool, and that is why Chelsea need to stop watching from the sidelines and actually get serious about this. The player is going to be available, the club is going to be willing to sell, the window is open. Chelsea just need to be the ones who walk through it. Comparing the two deals, which one is more achievable? This is actually a really interesting question. Both deals have problems, but the problems are very different. With Navarros, the problem is the legal and contractual situation. The Real Madrid buyback clause and the sell-on fee create complications that are hard to navigate, but if Chelsea can find a way to get clarity on those issues, the actual transfer itself is not hugely expensive. 25 million euros for a 21-year-old center-back who is already playing in Serie A is a decent price. Como might want more, but there is room to negotiate. With Gomez, the problem is competition. Liverpool are ahead in the race. Other clubs have been circling. Chelsea are not the only ones who want this player, but the advantage here is that Gomez is definitely leaving Wolves, and the selling club will have to deal. The question is just about price and destination. If Chelsea had to choose which one was more straightforward to complete, you would probably say Navarros. The complications there are about contract clauses, which can at least be investigated and understood. The competition with Liverpool for Gomez is harder to control because you cannot force a player to choose you. But if Chelsea had to choose which signing would have a bigger impact on the team, most people would probably say Gomez. A 25-year-old established central midfielder is going to make a more immediate difference than a 21-year-old center-back who is still developing. The ideal outcome for Chelsea? Get both. Bring in Navarros as the long-term defensive option and land Gomez to strengthen the midfield now. That would be a brilliant summer window. But is it realistic to get both? That depends on how many other signings Chelsea are planning and how much they are willing to spend in total. What does this tell us about Chelsea's transfer strategy? Looking at these two targets together tells you quite a bit about how Chelsea are thinking about squad building. With Navarros, they are clearly planning for the future. A 21-year-old center-back who is not going to come in and be an automatic starter straight away, but who has the tools to become a top player. That is a long-term investment. You are buying potential and development. With Gomez, they are looking for more immediate help. He is 25 and ready to come in and play. He is not a project. He is a player who can step into the team and make a difference right now. That suggests Chelsea know they need to improve the squad for the coming season, not just 3 years from now. That combination of short-term need and long-term planning is actually a healthy way to approach a transfer window. You cannot just buy young potential and hope it works out. You also need players who can come in and help you win games now. Chelsea seem to be trying to balance both. The concern, as always with Chelsea, is whether they will actually follow through. There have been summers where Chelsea have been linked with a lot of players, and then the window closes and the squad does not look dramatically better. The links and the interest are only worth something if deals actually get done. This has to be a summer where Chelsea are decisive. Navarros and Gomez are good targets, but they need to be pursued with urgency and clarity. No waiting around, no letting other clubs get ahead. If you want a player, go and get them. What are Chelsea fans saying about all this? From what you can gather by talking to Chelsea supporters and reading their reactions online, the mood is cautiously optimistic but with plenty of nerves. Most Chelsea fans are excited about the idea of signing Gomez. They know midfield has been a problem area, and they can see that Gomez would solve a real issue, but the news about Liverpool being ahead in the race has taken some of the excitement away. Nobody wants to be second best, especially when the competition is Liverpool. On Navarros, the reaction is more mixed. Some fans are enthusiastic about bringing in a young center back with his profile. Others are nervous about the Real Madrid clauses. There is a legitimate worry that Chelsea could spend money on a player and then have him pulled away from them by a clause that was always there in the background. The deeper frustration for many Chelsea fans is the feeling that the club sometimes makes things harder than they need to be. They have resources, they have people. They should be able to move quickly and cleanly in the transfer market. When they are behind Liverpool for a player or tangled up in complicated clauses on another, it feels like things are not being handled as efficiently as they could be. But at the same time, transfer windows are complicated. There are always things happening behind the scenes that fans do not see. Just because a report says Chelsea are behind Liverpool today does not mean that is how things will look in 3 weeks when the window actually opens. Here's the real question, though. If Chelsea miss out on Gomez and the Navarros deal falls through because of the Real Madrid complications, who else do they go for? That is the scenario nobody wants to think about, but it is one worth having a plan for. The bottom line, Chelsea have good targets. Now they need to close. Let us bring it all together. Jacobo Navarros is a 21-year-old center back at Como who Chelsea rate highly. He costs around 25 million euros, which is fair. But he comes with a Real Madrid buyback clause and a sell-on fee that complicate the deal significantly. Chelsea need to understand those clauses fully before committing. Joao Gomez is a 25-year-old central midfielder at Wolverhampton Wanderers who is almost certainly leaving this summer because the club is heading for relegation. He costs around 40 million euros, which is reasonable for his quality, but Chelsea are currently behind Liverpool in the race for his signature, and that is a problem that needs to be addressed quickly. Both players would improve Chelsea. Both deals are achievable, but both require Chelsea to be sharper and more decisive than they have sometimes been in recent transfer windows. The summer is coming. The window will open. And when it does, Chelsea cannot afford to stand around waiting for things to fall into place. In today's transfer market, you have to go and make things happen. Chelsea fans have been patient. They have watched the squad get rebuilt slowly over the past couple of years. This summer feels like it could be a big one, a summer where the pieces actually come together and the team starts to look like genuine title contenders again. But that only happens if the people making the decisions at the club do their jobs, sign the right players, move at the right time. Do not overthink it. Navarros and Gomez. Two names, two chances to make Chelsea stronger. The question is whether Chelsea will seize both of them or let at least one slip away. We will find out soon enough, and when the dust settles on this summer's transfer window, we will know a lot more about where this Chelsea project is really heading. So Chelsea fans, let us end with this. If you could only sign one of these two players this summer, which one would you choose? Jacobo Navarros to fix the defense long term, or Joao Gomez to improve the midfield right now? Drop your thoughts below. This is your chance to have the debate.